Welcome to the May 27th Jail and Zones production user call. We have Carlo, Philip, Jamie, Jan, Dan, Alexia, myself, Michael so far. And Jan, you've been making progress with package base. I understand you want to give a demo. Maybe drop in your cgit link if it's appropriate for the public.
I will drop in the link later.
Okay.
So let me grab the screen share for a second.
Yep.
Can everyone see my terminal window?
Yeah. Yes.
What just
I
happened?
destroyed the jail dataset. So we're starting from scratch with a jail.conf which looks like this. So I split up and declaring a bunch of basic settings. Then the declaration of how I would like my jail to be populated by the scripts, following later in the file, the packages to install, and so on. And then we get to the usual stuff. But the important part is that if you want to customize it, you only have to customize this part. So now let's see it in action before we go over the details. So up. It runs fairly quickly because I'm installing only 200 of the 500 something base packages. And I'm ripping out the largest ones, like the compiler, linker, debugger, and debug symbols for related big commands. But the resulting jail userland is still fairly complete. So documentation is included, all but the largest commands are there and really trims down the base system. Now I'm installing a few packages which aren't the base, and the jail is running. So if I stop the jail and start it again, we can see that the overhead is fairly minimal when it comes to starting and stopping time. And if I'm in the jail, guess you have a jail. So documentation is still there. It already took care of, for example, binding syslog-d only to Unix sockets. And I will drop a link to the gist with it all. In the chat. Any questions?
I am looking forward to package base.
It's there and it works.
Yep. I'm going to wait until it's in a base OS release and then start building my own package base at home. Because I'm already building all my packages.
Yeah, so you can either build it through Prudere as part of your normal package builds, or you can, so if you build a jail with Prudere, there's a flag to just get a repository for that userland as compiled by Prudere. It's just one command line flag you have to give it when building a jail with Prudere. And the other option is to do something like this. You go to your sources and you say either make packages, which gives you that, or more interesting, make update packages, which in theory gives you the repository with only the packages changed in the repository which have changed content. So when you then do a package upgrade, only the packages which contain changed files will get upgraded, so that you're not reinstalling the whole userland every time there's a new patch level. It's not that it would break anything to do that, it's just inefficient. It makes your backups balloon to uselessly annoying large sizes if you have lots of jails. But because of some regression in the make files, which invoked the package repo command incorrectly by having the arguments out of order. And now that package version 2 cares about that you have to give the global package arguments before you give the subcommand and then arguments to the subcommand. Oh, now that you do, it kind of doesn't work. The deduplication is triggers false positives, and then you get your maximum set of packages. So right now that optimization is broken in 14.2 for package 2.1. It's a bit annoying, but it's about to get fixed. And it's a one-line change to the make file. So if you're already building it yourself, you can just put the -o options in front in make.inc1. Sorry, makefile.inc1. But yeah. So the nitty-gritty details are a bit messier now that we've seen it in action. The first step I'm doing is I'm inferring the data set the jail deserves from its mount path. So I'm assuming that a /jails or whatever the parent directory is supposed to be data set already exists. Then I can use df to get it so that I don't have to configure the data set. Next, once I have the dataset, I check if a snapshot directory exists inside that dataset. If not, I assume the dataset doesn't exist and I create one or attempt to create one. If that fails, the jail startup fails. If it already exists, the jail is happy and just says that, oh, I found an existing dataset. Then I make sure that the file system is still empty. If so, I create an empty snapshot, which is really handy because it's a point which has a name as a snapshot, but when you replicate, you can always find a common starting point. You will always have some common history to change something, even if you roll back. Otherwise, if you delete the oldest snapshot, replication can get messy. If the file system isn't empty and the snapshot doesn't exist, it just emits a warning and continues. Another problem is that the way package base installation into a jail works, the package command on the host starts and then jail attaches itself. But package needs some things configured to work correctly. So what I'm doing is I create a temporary directory to assemble all the stuff I need. So I'm creating the directories I need and then copy the relevant files. So because of the way dependencies inside packages are underdocumented in the base system, it kind of yells at you that a bunch of users are unknown. It's not a problem because the tar archives record both the numeric user and group IDs and the names, but it's messy to have all of that warning polluting your standard error. So instead, I preceded with the default password and groups files. That's just to make it happy. And then I index those and generate the passwordless passwd file for our non-root viewing pleasures. Next, package these days is by default configured to fetch packages from the content delivery network via HTTPS. For that, it needs the root CA list, or at least the root CA which signed the CDN certificate. So I just import root CA lists from the host, both the trusted and untrusted ones. Next, we need the code signing key for the official FreeBSD packages repositories. Right now, there has never been a key which needed revocation because we only have one code signing key. But in case there ever is a need to revoke it, I copy both the revoked and the trusted directory. Unless you have a resolver listening on the IPv4 loopback address, you need an etc resolve conf. So I copy that into the jail. And then I declare the base repository, which makes use of the version miner to have a generic configuration file which will keep working. Even if you upgrade the base system to 14.3 in the future, you will just have to specify the right OS release date and OS version jail parameter, and then your package space will do the right thing and keep following the new repository URL. Now that I have populated my temp directory with everything I need, I use tar to archive it all and pipe it into another tar, which seems like a complicated way to write cp-a. But this way, with having the unpacking tar change root itself into the J directory, it's safe to use with relative symlinks and absolute symlinks and other stuff which could be in a jail. So let's be better safe than sorry. And in each of these stages, which will follow on, I set a snapshot as a marker so that if it fails for some reason, I know how far I've gotten and can skip the steps which were successful. So if you misconfigure something in the configuration part in the upper part of the file, you don't lose a minute or so testing every time, you lose a few seconds. Okay, now this is all in the preparation phase of the jail. Here, exec.prepare. Now the jail state machine continues until we reach a created stage where the jail in the kernel exists, but nothing has run inside of it. This is the best part, in my opinion, where we can, the best time where we can use the jail with package-j as a jail, but it's not yet containing any file and it's implicitly right now in a persistent state. So it's fine if we leave it for some reason. Okay. The next step is to get our up-to-date package databases. But because the package command normally looks at an installed executable to find the system version from the ELF metadata in the executable, but right now the jail is probably empty. So we have to give it both the API and the version of the operating system as an option, so that it doesn't try to figure something out and then tell us, sorry, it can't figure something out from a missing file. Now, okay, we have the database, time to take a snapshot. Next step is to use the database with package rquery to find out which packages to install. So in the beginning here, I have my query, which is in the package query syntax. So %n is the package name, and tiled does a shell glob match. So basically I can have wildcards here with star and question mark. And what I'm deselecting is 32-bit support, the debug symbol files, headers, not because they take up a lot of space, but because it's a lot of little files, which I don't need. And if I want them, I can install them later. The kernel, because it's and bootloader and so on, because it's big files. BSNMP, because it pulls in the test suite for some reason, which is another 70 megabytes I don't need. The compiler, because it's just massive. Driver related tools and dtrace, because they have no use to me inside a jail. Again, the linker and debugger, because they're big. Same for the rescue commands, because I don't need rescue commands in a jail when I can recover any broken jail from the host. I also don't want to include the full FreeBSD base system sources or the tests. With that deselected, we can now have a look. The jail is pretty. Oh, why is it so big? Oh, because I installed a bunch of packages. Okay. If I don't install packages, this stays a lot smaller. But still, full FreeBSD base installation with compression is 3.5 gig. So it's, yeah. After I have the selected package set, I fetch the packages, then I take another snapshot, I install the packages, and if installation was successful, I clear the package cache to trim down the jail again. And I also want to have generic support for installing packages into the jail, but I don't want to reinstall them on every start. I only want to check, is that package installed? Upgrading the package is left to the user. The bootstrapping should only make sure that it's at least installed. The way I do this is I check if I have anything configured, otherwise I'm already done. If so, I just sort the list of wanted package names. Then I build up a package query to search which of the packages are installed, and then use the com command here with two here dogs to find out any packages which are wanted but not yet installed. Because both lists are sorted, I can use the com command to do this basically left join. And then install the missing packages. I also scripted a little helper to use sysrc's check mode to check if the relevant sysrc values are configured in rc.conf, and if not, I set all of them. So if sysrc thinks anything specified in the jailconf as a rc.conf configuration is not set to the value I set all of the values again. Beware that this does not work with the plus equal or minus equal operators right now. It has been fixed upstream, but it's not yet available in releases because as far as I know, it's not going to make it into an errata. So basically you have to wait for the next release to get the sysrc version, which can handle -c with the set operations. Then little helper to run the RC scripts in a way which produces nicer output. You can see here. So if I stop it and start it, you get it indented like this. And that's about it. And I dropped the link to that as a GitHub no paste.
Yes, I've been reposting it as people land in the meeting.
Yep. So with that, if I now stop the jail again and destroy it and say I don't want packages, so now, yep, it's gone. Right now it's a single file with jail, and that's its configuration file. And now deploy it again, putting some load on the CDN, but
well, not with your varnish
that's
cache
live.
or what?
Not for that system.
Okay, fine. So to whom it may
Because to do
concern,
that would
yeah,
mean that the package configuration file would point at my cache and not at the official project servers, which means it would work way worse for everyone but me because, yeah.
of course. Although Jan
And
documents
as
how
you
to
can
do a
see
varnish
now,
cache for this. Go ahead. Ta-da.
the jail now uses 174 megabytes on disk because of a LZ4 compression factor of 2.02. This means that logically the jail is 312 megabytes, and the reference data is almost identical. Does anyone have questions, ideas, commentary?
I have a
When can I ride this in my car? When can I install this in my car?
I tried it. It's working. He's been adding things like non-base packages. So the link is in the chat.
Question.
Yes, Alexei.
Is it a good idea to move the scripts as different files instead of just keeping it all in the joke?
Yes. I wanted to have a single file example. It would be a lot better to break that up into multiple files to be included modularly. And that makes it a lot easier to reuse, but it means you have to explain a multi-file setup. So for the
Yeah.
example, I kept it all in a single file.
Yeah, I don't like it myself just because of all the escapes that you need to include there.
Oh, the escapes are not really avoidable
Yeah.
because the way the jail configuration language works, it kind of has to be double quoted. Because if you look at this mess here, the alternative would be to have an absolute path in here, which would work. Or you have to make assumptions about the way the system is laid out, which I do for my production systems, but I can't do that in an example because it would make it a lot harder to understand the example, in my opinion.
Other commentary.
so you're populating like etc password and some other stuff.
Yeah, with the default
Yeah.
values, which a fresh userland will include anyway, so it doesn't generate package save files as long as it increases bit by bit.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, is there like a way where you would not like hard code them in the script and use the existing ones from the package base, where you can like query like the default prerequisites for the
Yes,
rest
I
of the
could
package base?
fetch the relevant package once I fetched it in the package cache, I could use the knowledge how packages are laid out to output just that file from inside the package to standard out. But again, lots of complexity for that to gain.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment because it seems like a duplicated file where it can go out of sync in future.
Oh, it wouldn't be a problem if it goes out of sync. Not really.
Yeah.
At worst, you would get a few warnings back, which this is only to make the system look like the users are already there so that tar is happy when unpacking the packages.
Yeah.
Other questions? Craytonian, go ahead and try and talk. You have no audio at all. I see. Trying to call in. Anyway, Jan, can I grab the share back?
Please do.
Okay. And I'm doing that because Kill zones. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
So Jan, would it give you, let's see, how specific do you have to be on the OS release? Can it just do latest 14.2 or you need to keep track of
Oh, that's only a label.
only what?
If it's out of sync, it doesn't really cause a problem. It's mostly for human consumption.
Oh, okay. So it'll kind of self-heal. And I've found that that's just awesome with package-based OS. Especially if you have like kernel mismatch. It's like, oh, problem went away.
So the patch level is the other parts are kind of important for package to do the right thing. Otherwise, it will yell at you. You could silence those warnings, but it would disable safety nets. So you kind of have to know the minor release you want to install, or if you are following stable or current.
I see. And one big thank you, Jan, you've been doing homework on like what's needed here, and that's something I would completely miss. So thank you for doing Rod's work, as they say, or I say. Um, this is great. Hopefully, over time, with the help of the project, Dave, I hope you're watching along. I
I
am
am. Yep.
delighted that the housekeeping and the unexpected surprises are all being addressed one by one. Any observations on comments on how this fits in the bigger ecosystem?
No, I think it's really interesting to see more package-based stuff getting used. I've only really started looking into it in the last, I guess, really 3 weeks tops. And um, yeah, we've got 3 fixes related to already into 14.3. So yeah, it's really good to see people using it.
Amen.
Yeah, I missed, unfortunately, because I was driving. I missed Jan, your comment about something missing from SysRC, and I wonder what
So
that was.
my comment is that there's a bug in the sysrc and has been forever
Yeah.
that the package, the sysrc does see, so the check mode to see if the rc-conf is already in sync with what you want it to have as key value pairs or set members.
Like check mode, yeah.
Yeah, the check mode only works for assignments, not for plus equal minus equal set operation.
Ah, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Yep.
But that has been fixed upstream, but not yet made it down into an errata. So I guess you kind of have to upgrade to 14.3 because I think it's unstable. It's definitely in current.
Oh, good. So it's probably going to be in release. Too late to get it into 14.3 now. I think that ship is sailed. If it's missing
And
in
I think it wasn't stable in time.
oh, okay, excellent. Excellent. 14.3
Because it
should be
was a
out like in a
month
week
or
or
two
two,
ago that it
I
was
guess.
fixed in,
2 weeks.
and then marked as MFC. Um, let me check. Bugzilla event.
Okay, so yeah, all those little issues, let's get them looked at and resolved over time, but that is great news. So anyone who's rolled in,
Damn,
Daniel,
it looks
Alexia,
like it could
Quintonian,
have
go ahead.
missed the MFC window because it was committed on the 28th of April. Hmm. But if so, it would be a good thing to try to force in.
Yeah, too late now. We just switched to the first RC, and it has to be a kernel killing bug to stop it now.
Okay, so any topics, questions, ideas from those who rolled in? We've got other items, but I want to see if anyone has anything burning. If not, Carla, let's hear about Topo. Would you like to give an introduction and demo? I might have a tab open for the project. Oh, yes,
Okay.
you did.
Uh,
That here, Topo.
should I go ahead and talk?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. You have the
Okay,
floor.
so uh, a few times already I had like a problem, a really simple problem, and that is I have some dependencies that have to be resolved in some order, like a graph, and there is not really a utility I know of that you can use to give you like how it should be ordered, those dependencies, and how you can like dynamically resolve them, and it will give you like the intermediate results, like what you can do next. So I created a tiny utility. It's like a few hundred lines of C, and it's you use it like SD standard input and standard output for communication. and you provided a graph, like some nodes, and you can query which nodes can be resolved, and you can tell it which nodes you resolved. And after resolving some nodes, it will update and tell you, if you ask it, which other nodes are now available to be resolved. So if I can grab
Please.
the screen share, yeah, let's see. Desktop. Okay, can you see my screen?
I see gray stripes. Diagonal. Now we do.
Okay, so I just built it, and here is I have a test file that's a graph. So how you can read this, it's A is depending on B, and on C, and also D, and the other stuff. So it's B pointing towards A. I also created a small shell script that visualizes it. It's much better than me just describing it.
Ooh.
So it's this.
For the win.
Let's see if I can make this a bit, no, yeah, like this. Okay. So from this, you can see that what is A? Yeah, B is pointing to A. And now if I call topo, and I will try to recreate this. So I will manually type in these nodes, A, D, B, P, C, P, D, P, C, D, S, X, D, F, F. Yeah. Okay, so now if I just press enter without doing anything, it will tell me which nodes can be resolved, and these are P and X because they have no dependencies pointing to them. So if I, for example, resolve P and now ask what can be resolved, it will tell me X and B because now B has nothing pointing to it. So if I just, for example, resolve X, S, and F, I will see B and D are now available to be resolved. So yeah, that's the basically whole utility. Yeah, now I resolved everything. It is mostly complete. I just have one more thing I want to add, and that is after resolving all these nodes, if I, for example, put something again, like A, that needs to be resolved after B, and I check what can be resolved, it will tell me B, even though B has already been resolved. So in practice, if you have some nodes, for example, like networking that is depending on like driver bring up and stuff like that, if you've done like a node, you probably don't want to run it again when dynamically adding a dependency, a new dependency that depends on the thing that is already resolved. You don't want to run the resolved thing again. So yeah. Are there any questions?
Do you have an example service that motivated this and just saved the day with?
Well, I was for my internal projects there was some uses, but I was looking at RC order and how it did stuff, and I wanted to have like a tiny utility that did basically the same but dynamically, and I wanted to see how I can replace the init system for myself and see how well that goes. But yeah, I don't. For now, it's just like a tiny useless utility that does stuff.
So you could use this for, so for example, in complex jail setups, you tend to have like three things that need to be coordinated. You need some templates sorted, then you need some networking and volumes mounted, and that's sort of the same sort of problem in some ways, isn't it? It's just
Yeah.
dependency graph. Could Topo do this as well for that?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really simple. It's just strings. It has three. It parses things line by line, and it has three different like types of input. It's like dependency, resolution, and query. You can
Yeah.
use it for anything, and I've encountered like a bunch of different tiny problems that were like that, just as you described with some jail dependencies. So yeah, it can be used, but it needs to be like bolted in those
Yeah.
systems. That's probably going to be like the harder part. This was pretty simple.
Because I've looked at a thing like this for another project, and my programming language has graph traversal libraries built in, but it's a lot to bring to something where you just go, okay, just have these like 5 shell services, and think, yeah, let's
Yeah.
start a full VM just to manage these 5 shell scripts. Yeah.
Also, is so for like init system bring up, I was thinking I would need to spawn parallel processes and wait for any of them, not for all the sub processes to finish. Is
Yeah.
there a way to do that and for it to tell me which one finished?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Then that
Um,
should be pretty easy to be added.
so the traditional way is that you get a signal,
Yeah,
a sick child.
yeah,
That's the portable way, which is a bit annoying to program around. You will have a signal handler, and the safest, most portable way to deal with that is to create a pipe, and in the signal handler, write just a single byte to the pipe.
yeah,
Technically, you can write up to pipe underscore buff, so 512 bytes are guaranteed, which should be enough for something like a integer value or something.
yeah,
But then you have your main event loop, and instead of having your event loop deal with the signals, you just send the notification
yeah, to the
through the
pipe.
so-called self-pipe trick, sometimes attributed to DJB. And if you only care about FreeBSD, you can use KQ, which has a nicer API.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, I might give that a try and try to replace some
And
places I wanted to
I
have
looked at
this.
your code and was a bit confused whether you wanted to write C or C++
Oh yeah,
because it's
yeah.
basically written C in C++.
Oh, I that's the way I usually write C++. It's like C with name overloading or whatever they call it. Uh,
Yeah, that makes it very hard to read for anyone
unfriendly.
else.
Yeah,
The other thing is if you're targeting only FreeBSD again, you don't have to bring your own list. FreeBSD has this/q.h,
yeah,
which
yeah.
is a macro collection.
I think it's also available on Linux. I'm not sure though.
The other command you may want to look at is the tsort command in base, which does a topological sort of its input.
Okay, it's good to
And the
know.
rc order command has a parallel mode where instead of just sorting
Yeah,
the services in a order of startups, it will emit the startup order with all services which have no dependencies on
yeah,
the same line.
yeah. That's what inspired me actually. So the problem with that is that it's statically ordered. That you can like start 10 processes at once, and then you wait for all of them to finish, and
Mhm.
only then you start the next batch. And
Oh yeah,
this utility can handle like one process ending and opening up the possibility for a new one to spawn because of that one
yeah.
finishing.
Instead of basically running each batch of independent services to completion, you would be able to start the next depending service as soon as its dependencies are met.
Yeah, yeah, this is what this utility can do. So that's why I wanted to have it this way.
Cool. Other questions,
Okay.
ideas?
When it comes to your base.hpp file, while nice for development, setting W everything will break with just
Yeah,
about every compiler upgrade. So I would put that behind some kind of debug if dev,
yeah,
which also makes the W all and W extra redundant.
yeah. It is still in progress. I just did it so I can
and
easily
if
make.
inside your make file, I've done. Is there
No,
one at
it's
the
just
top
a
level?
shell script. It's build.sh. It's one line. It's this.
So for this kind of command, optimization level 3 is probably harmful because it will make the code bigger without performance improvement. So it just takes up more cache space.
I mean, its performance is not really that critical. It's just iterating over lists. It's not. It doesn't even have hash tables or anything. It's super simple.
And the compiler can give you better warnings when you explicitly set the C or C++ language standard you want.
Oh, I didn't know that.
std equals C++ whatever.
Yeah.
Those are just comments. Of course, it works as is.
Yeah. I also, first thing I'll probably do is add that resolve nodes so it does not create new nodes for ones which you already ran. So it will be a tiny change. And I might look into putting everything into a single like file because it does not really need multiple files. It was just for me to create it more easily.
Other
Okay.
questions or observations? That's very cool. Do you think that might in some way, shape, or form be an in-base tool at some point, or purely an add-on?
It would need a rewrite. It's written in my style, not in the BSD style. But I mean, by like this, no, because nothing depends on it. It has no real use case in the base. So
I see.
if somebody does something with it that should be useful to base, then yeah, probably, because it's tiny, it has no real dependencies other than the compiler. But for it to be included just because it can be included, yeah, not really.
Yeah,
Just curious.
you would need something like that if you want to get serious about a parallel mode in RC. But the various efforts to have parallel start up in FreeBSD RC.D services have all stalled out.
Yeah.
Right. We won't litigate that here. Okay, is that everything for your demo?
Yeah.
Cool, that was great, thank you. Let's see, moving on. So others have rolled in, like, oh, Dave, Daniel, and others, and Alexei. Do you have any topics, Tritonian? If not, Jan, do you want to describe the potential additional escape you found, which it's perhaps obscure enough that we can discuss it openly?
Yeah, so I had an idea yesterday, but I didn't have the time to check it, and that is what happens when you have one jail where you are root and another jail where you have code execution, but you're not root. So you take the rescue shell from the jail you root, you set UID it, send the file descriptor to the set UID shell to the other jail, and then you fexecve it. I wanted to write a test if it actually works, but I didn't have the time. Maybe tonight.
Cool.
Can you repeat it one more time? I
And
missed it.
Jamie, if you're not making coffee,
In
this
one
might
jail
interest
you
you.
root, and there you create a set UID binary. You open it and you send it to a jail where you're not root over a Unix socket, and the receiving jail then has a malicious set UID binary. It can execve, sorry, fexecve,
Oh, yeah.
so that you can smuggle a set UID binary into another jail in a way which you may be able to execute with set UID taking effect. If set UID takes effect, you can effectively take your user ID from one jail and grant it to someone in another jail over a Unix
Yeah.
socket, which is, yeah, again, breaks down the isolation of users between jails if they can communicate over Unix socket. If that works, I have to write the little 50-line proof of concept to check if it really works.
I don't see the security implication in this, in that it sounds more like a foot gun than a problem, because you have to have a setup where you have mastery over both jails, in that you can get one jail as root to do this. But if you have the ability to do the one jail as root and to set something up in the other jail, it means you are already a
Nope.
master of jails.
Let him
So
finish.
you're not getting anything.
Let's say I'm the user nobody in one jail and I'm the user root in another jail. And they share another fast to establish Unix socket connections over.
Well, that's the thing. Yes, say you're that, but how did you get to be that? Only with the permission of the parent jail to let you be root in the one jail.
So
And
if I'm granted root in one jail, I shouldn't be root in every jail I can talk to.
Yeah, that makes
I
sense.
suppose you couldn't, but on the other hand, I'm not sure that you should expect that it doesn't happen.
Yeah,
It's
you can.
the jail escapes where you use this to even get past the jail that gave you the permission in the first place. Here you are still stuck at the jail that gave you permission.
Eh? No. I can, if I'm, let's say I've owned one jail on a server, and I have root in one jail, and it's connected to another over Unix socket namespace. Okay. And in the other jail, I'm not yet root. I'm just contained to whatever service user I am there. Now, I shouldn't be able to combine my being any user ID with any other user ID in another jail to gain that user ID in both jails.
Also, what's preventing this from escaping to Prison Zero if you can communicate to a normal user with?
The cop out that having an assistant which is unjailed is kind of out of scope.
No, but if you have like a normal user and somebody gave you
I've
a
argued
jail to
that.
experiment with, and that would make you like a root on the host only
Yeah,
because you have a jail for yourself.
if you have a non-root user on the host and root in a jail, there are multiple ways you could escape.
Yeah, that's
Here
to
be
me that's a
dragons.
bigger concern than cross jail escape.
Yes, but the security team has told me that they consider that out of scope for a security fix. That doesn't mean it will not be fixed, but it's not worthy of a security patch.
Yeah.
Especially when your jail root is not a mount point, then you can do really nasty things like you create a world writable directory that's the inside/temp, and you have your assistant on the same file system, create a directory there, and rename the directory out while it's your working directory in the jail, and you have a jail escape. As documented on the public bug tracker. So I'm not telling any secrets, I'm just pointing out that it exists and is documented hidden in the bug histories. The number, if you want to look it up in the bug tracker, is 262179.
Yeah, and also there are, if I remember correctly, a few nested jail also
Yeah,
problems.
but so if my jailroot directory is not a mount point, it means it has a parent directory on the same file system. That means it can have basically sibling directories to the jail. And yeah, when you can have a subdirectory somewhere in the jail, and the unprivileged user on the host of a parent jail can look at the jail file system. It can rename this very permissively set up folder out, and if it's your working directory, if you have just escaped the jail because your working directory now is outside of your jail root.
Yeah, you got transported, smuggled.
Yeah, basically your directory was smuggled out of the jail, exactly. You got flushed out, and now you can walk up to past your original jail route. But sorry, you can walk up. You will not have to go past your original jail route. So as long as you don't have any other jail route or change routes, you can walk all the way up to the real root directory. And if you are processed with root privileges inside the jail you got smuggled out of, you still have root access to the file system. So you can, I don't know, add authorized key files for root or other users, modify the sudoers file, schedule cron jobs, run the add command to have cron add run runner run your one-shot script within the next 5 minutes, whatever. Yep. The defense against this style of attack is to make sure that all your jails have a mount point as their root directory, because if the jail root is a mount point, there is no parent directory which on the same file system where a directory could be renamed into to escape the jail. So if you're using a ZFS data set per jail, like probably most people these days, you're accidentally secure against this attack.
And last round, didn't we discuss something like a super lightweight mount, lighter than a null FS or something? That might be a cheap
That was
configuration.
my idea, but that was shut down by both Konstantin, Kip and Mark J.
Mark, yeah, okay.
They
Well,
don't like it to force you to have this kind of automatic mount point behavior, which doesn't mean that you couldn't implement such a VFS and opt into using it.
right. But by default, I see how it's a little oddball. Interesting. Other comments, questions, concerns, security goodies. Are we making progress, Jamie and company, on other open issues, if any? I haven't revisited the list of jail-related PRs lately, but for what it's worth, trust they're inching along.
I don't.
Jamie, go ahead if you have anything.
I would like to bring up this review.
Yeah.
Again.
Ooh, a review. Sure. That's what you got.
Yeah. I don't have anything particular to add. I've only been watching it happen, so I'll just listen.
That's cool. No worries.
So what this
you got,
review proposes is the ability for the jail.conf parser to look at the executable bit of the
the
jail.conf.
executable jail. Yes, yes.
And if the jail.conf is executable, it will execute it, pass the standard output as jailconf, and expect it to exit with an exit status of 0. If it does that, and the syntax is valid, it's as if the standard output was in the file, which allows you to have dynamic jail.conf. For example, you could have something like the OS version for the ABI version number and the host system version for the patch level and so on be automatically the default, so that the jail's OS version and OS release date are populated with the host information by default. Or you could have a UCL to jail.conf converter, which takes its current location of the symlink to the script and then just loads UCL instead and turns it into jailconf so that you can have the jail command accept different formats. Even more involved use cases, which would be enabled, is to store your configuration in a SQLite database, for example, so that it becomes easily machine readable, for which could be quite interesting for some kind of jail orchestrator. But the nice thing about doing it this way, instead of having a service which declares itself to run before the jail command, is that doing it this way, the dependency would be injected into jailconf so that even if you use it on the command line, it's always up to date. You could also just run a make file or whatever to auto-generate stuff and then cut that so that it's quite fast.
You can also run fetch.
Yes, you could fetch stuff, and I don't consider it a significantly increased attack surface because of all the hooks which run as root on the host. So as long as exec.prepare runs the shell script as root on the host, why should I worry about what someone could have the jail command execute instead? The jail startup would execute it if it's in an unexecutable text file anyway. It's just that you get the code execution a little bit earlier in the jail startup, which, yeah, milliseconds, if that.
Have you addressed Jamie's last comment here from October? Chicken and egg.
I think that this is kind of impossible because you would have to look up the current configuration state or make it a command line flag.
And have you received any buy-in from others who thought,
Nope.
hey, I could use that?
Just Jamie's response.
And
Kyle Evans responded with stylistic improvements, but nothing on the subject matter, just stylistic improvements, how to follow style 8. Sorry, 9.
And Dave, any thoughts or observations or questions?
So no, the only thing that occurred to me is, how does this work for teardown? Well, what happens if you run it twice? Is
You
jail
run the
framework supposed to do the right thing, or are we expecting that this is not something that should be run twice?
it will run every time you invoke the jail command. You must produce stable output.
Right. So you need to make sure that if you're mounting volumes, that you only do it once. If you're doing networky things,
Yeah,
then you
the
reproduce
base
the same
system
output.
has all the tools you need for that. For example, instead of running mount something, you do an echo minimal fs tab pipe mount dash f slash def stdin dash
Yeah.
a. So you use the idempotency logic in the mount command. Yeah.
Okay, well, feel free to advocate
makes
for
any
that
sense,
as
at
you
least.
please. Any other questions, ideas, stories? We haven't heard from you, Daniel. Yes, that was ambiguous intentionally, as we have a redundant array of Daniels.
Well, nothing, no fun jail news in Manhattan.
I saw someone talking about setting up a laptop on a YouTube video, and
Ooh.
I noticed they used the reboot command. And that reminded me that reboot is not the same as shutdown -R now. And I did a quick investigation on FreeBSD 14.3 beta 3 by going in to a newly installed VM on Beehive, setting jail to be enabled, modifying the rc.d script to invoke logger when jail stop is invoked, and then did a reboot. The message did not appear.
Mm.
Then I did a shutdown -r, and the message did appear. So the takeaway is don't do reboot if you want your rc.d stop scripts to be run. Use something else. For example, shutdown -r now.
I'm definitely guilty of that, and I think we should fix FreeBSD so that reboot just does shutdown R now.
Yeah.
Right, it should be a switch
I
not to do
can't-
that.
Yeah, it should be minus foot gun or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, there
I've been
was
doing this
a
for like 15 years now, so it can't be that serious.
there,
No one's told me they lost
it,
data yet.
So
it's not in the documentation. Reboot is not in the documentation. It's something you brought from somewhere else.
so the reboot command will only say reboot the system, which means that if a clean shutdown as far as file systems are concerned, and as part of the shutdown, the kernel/init will send a SIG term to every process, but it will not run the rc.d scripts flagged with the shutdown marker in reverse order to cleanly stop the services. So what could happen is that, for example, your database is shut down before your web application, and then you would have a bunch of cries for mercy in your application logs because the database is gone.
Mhm.
Or data loss, corrupted journals, all those sorts of things.
All
because
those
No,
the
those
data-
things really shouldn't happen. If your database has a journal corruption, if the database processes receive a SIG term, your database is crap.
Oh, some of these
Even
databases,
should.
I don't get to choose which ones people want to run. MongoDB,
Even
OpenSearch.
that
OpenSearch takes
shouldn't
ages
lose
to shut down.
data if it receives a SIG term.
You haven't followed much history of MongoDB then. It's definitely in your category of databases.
Oh,
Um,
I did
yeah.
Goodness.
say it should, not that it always did.
Yeah. That's a good tip, Dan. We should keep mentioning that. I'm going to start the equivalent of a swear jar, a reboot jar. Every time I reboot, I'm going to put a euro in.
Ha. Okay, other questions, ideas,
Yeah.
concerns? Funny.
If
Yes,
Jamie's
Dave.
still here, I have
Yeah.
one interesting thing that Jan and I were talking about, I think, yesterday.
Yes, what you got?
So, on my list of things I want, other than ponies and unicorns and rainbows,
Oh,
I have rootless jails, and for rootless jails, the two sort of use cases that I personally have is one of them is in Podman, Linux has rootless jails and we don't, so that's like an envy thing. I'd like people to be able to make a jail as a normal user, like to sort of jail their own systems just because it makes things nice and easy for testing. And from a CI perspective, I would like to have that as well. And so what we have now is we have a thing called mdo in base, which uses a new mandatory access control framework that I think Baptiste and Olivier Ciano wrote. And they developed this thing internally which uses something called, I think it's called set creds. And set creds allows, it's kind of like, if you think of it like as sudo but for the kernel, I guess. So it's built into FreeBSD. It's not an external tool. And I was wondering if set creds/set could be sort of added as an extra parameter to set jail, through jail attach and jail set, so that you could actually have a non-root user have the ability to create jails, somewhat similar to what we have for chroot. We have user chroot now as well. That's just a thought to throw out there.
So
Yeah, Jan linked to the notes there. That's very good. I'm sitting in the car, so I can't.
for a lot of stuff you're describing, I think the proper way to do it is to have a jail management companion daemon, which may be configured to allow unprivileged jails creations or starting and stopping, so that you give it a certain policy, because for a lot of useful jail startup, you kind of have to do privileged operations like create new network interfaces. If you want a VNet jail to attach to a bridge or something, you may still want to have a service user be able to start and stop that jail, but the user obviously can't do it on themselves, because that would mean they have to have a lot of passwordless sudo commands whitelisted or something like that, which would be really annoying to do. The better way would be to have a kind of jailconf++ where you specify what is allowed and who's allowed to do that, and then the user asks a trusted daemon to perform the operation.
Yeah, and that's I think the thing with that is, again, we sort of go down this path of, I'll just get a daemon to do all of that, and then you sort of find out that there's gaps you didn't think of, and all of a sudden it's all over again. And I just like the idea of saying, okay, well, this user will be able to get enough creds to do that. But the constraint is that you have to have your data set set up. You have to not be wanting to do networking or have that set up prior. And that's a less onerous thing to put in place.
And no file systems and no
Well, you can use
hierarchical
VFS use them out.
resource
There's VFS use them out
limits.
already. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. You won't get all your cake. If you want all your cake, you need to root, and you need to do all of the stuff you need to do.
Yeah.
But you can get a lot of cake, just without that. So, interesting
Why no
idea anyway.
networking? I mean, you could do that with VNet jails, right?
Don't you still need to be root to make the VNet jail though?
Yeah, you do. You do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to attach the VNet to anything, you also need to be root, because you either have to move existing network interfaces into the VNet jail, or you have to create new ones and move them over. Otherwise, the VNet jail will have only its loopback at most. So it's completely isolated.
Yeah, but you can have like internal netgraph network inside, so you can play with that, but you have no outside world.
Even with that, how do you play with the internal network once it's set up if you're not root?
Well, you don't get to play with it at all. So yeah, so those that I think I have to have a look at that and see how far I can get with just shell scripting to see whether that's sufficient.
Dave, one of the patterns I've seen in discussions at UBSDCon and so on is to have an outer VNet jail, and then the actual service runs in either inherit or alias jail inside of that. So you would kind of give you would create the almost entirely empty VNet jail, and then you would give them maybe sudo jexec to go into the pre-created VNet jail, and then they can create sub-jails inside of that.
Yeah, so personally for my CI stuff, that's what I'd start off doing, is having a single parent jail, and then it runs child jails inside of it. And it's just trying to reduce that surface down and down and down and down. And ultimately, the desired state is that the parent jail, there's no need for a process that runs as root, ideally.
So what you want is, if a user creates the jail then has the created user's cred, and then if you jexec into the jail, you gain that cred. So you get all the security parts of the jail, none of the additional things like file systems and networking and stuff like that aren't there, but you get the limiting factors of jails. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah. Let me just switch to.
That could be interesting as a sandboxing tool as well.
Yeah, I think that's Going
Yeah.
that direction, I can see a use case for this.
Yeah,
Bonus being stupid.
treating it as a kind of sandbox for unprivileged applications makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah, sort of the thing you have is you have this sensitive thing you want to do with untrusted code from some other user or system, and then the first thing you do is go, okay, I'm just going to pass some stuff into root, and it's kind of like, okay, is there any way we could reduce that so that little bit at the end doesn't really put you at risk? I mean, one of the things that's not entirely obvious with Podman with container jails is that we're quite used to having service jails where you run a whole daemon and you expect to have rc.d scripts running and start up and shut down. And the Podman world doesn't have that. You just start up and you run your application. And for that, it's a very nice sort of fit to say, well, okay, in this jail, there's never going to be root processes, and I'm only going to be running the single binary as the single user. And I think that's possible today in our normal jail.com stuff. There's a user setting for that you get it to run as.
What's the next step on all that? More proof of concept and stuff in scripts, or see how that MacDo goodness evolves, or what?
Yeah, I emailed Olivier Soutner, who I think wrote some of the MacDo. I'm pretty sure it's a pun, by the way, because they're all French. So McDonald's in French is pronounced MacDo. So this framework is called MacDo, and I wonder if that's intentional or not. But he did the secret stuff, and I sort of wanted to ask him, okay, you did it here, and you've clearly indicated this should be usable elsewhere. What sort of use cases did you have in mind for it? Anyway, just a thought. So we'll give it a bit of a tangle and see where it goes.
Carlo, any other thoughts? I see you've chimed in. Okay, well,
just thinking,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah, well, keep at it, everyone. Anything else for today, or shall we call it good? It sounds like there will be an Ask Me Anything at BSDCan, inspired by a cancellation and the Discord AMAs. So go ahead and look forward to that. Let's see. We lost Daniel 1. Who would like the honors at what, 18 after? I'm not one for much marketing, but do like and do subscribe. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you.